And indeed, Richard Webb, the champion from a couple of years ago in the number 8 Spire. There's a little bit of creeping as the lights go out. I'm not sure anyone gained a particular advantage from that. It's going to be Richard Webb, I think, that's going to lead into the first corner. Yes, it is in the Spire, and then it's Mattel's second and third of Dan Clues and Scott Mattel, respectively. Scott Mattel winning the race this morning in wet conditions. Change of conditions now, though. Ryan Yarrow going to try and go around his outside to take third place away at the banking. Heading off towards Church Corner, it's Webb from Clues, from Mattel, Yarrow, and going with them as well is number 42, Clint Newman, in 5th position. Gap back to Paul Rogers in 6th spot, a small gap, that is, I should say. Climbing up the hill towards Rocket for the first time, and it's the number 8 car of Richard Webb that has the lead. Bit of a lock-up from Clues, who runs wide, and that allows Mattel to get through into second place. Clues, Yarrow's trying to go around the outside of Clues as well to get up into third position. They're sort of nose to nose, aren't they, those two cars, as they turn their way through Peel. Still side by side. Yarrow probably here is going to squeeze through into the first element of the corkscrew.
Yes, he does. Up into third position then for Ryan Yarrow. In Cup 200, by the way, pretty sure it's Alistair Bolton who's got the advantage. There he goes, looking the white number 77 car, with John Cutmore right behind him and Mike Whiteman-Hayward as well. So the top 3 in Cup 200 absolutely together after a good side-by-side battle through the first couple of corners from those drivers. But Richard Webb leads by nearly 1.3 seconds now over Scott Mattel in second. Ryan Yarrow, though, in third, is going for second up the inside into the banking. That's not quite going to work, but Ryan Yarrow on his toes here. He wants to get after Richard Webb before he gets too far up the road.
Yeah, that's right. So it's Webb leading, Mattel second, Yarrow third, and fourth is Clues. There's Charlie Sladden in another Mattel, number 28. He switched from the Ecton Harvard Sabre to the Mattel for this season, and it seems to have got him a bit further up the field. The 21-year-old from Essex, as Johnny McGill, number 72, is heading slowly into the pit lane. So sadly, his race weekend has come to a premature end. Look how Clint Newman, number 42, is right with these cars as well. So the postman from the West Country is really delivering well this weekend. He's right on terms with number 2, Dan Clues, on the second lap of the race.
Lead gap coming down on this lap, I would say, between Webb and Mattel. That doesn't look like 1.3 seconds anymore quite as they drop down through the corkscrew. The back, Carl Austin there. Was that him nipping up the inside of Paul Rogers, I think?
Charlie Sladden, I think.
Defending from Charlie Sladden, right, okay. For 7th position. Lead gap, well, it's not 1.2 seconds, it's 1.184 seconds. It came down slightly. Fastest lap set by Scott Mattel, but only fractionally quicker than the race leader.
Yeah, 1.1 seconds between the first two cars as things stand, as they all streak their way around the right-hander of the banking. A few gaps starting to emerge, but still a long way to go in this race. There are the leading Cup 200 cars. It's Al Bolton, number 77, in the white car. It's the blue car for number 98, John Cutmore. Both of them very experienced drivers, long-time competitors in RGB, although Bolton in particular has had quite a long time away. And returning, and he really enjoyed driving these Cup 200 cars in the wet on the Atomic Racing cars, the MK Indy chassis that these are based on, with a Hayabusa engine, giving them plenty of power. Oh, someone had a spin, and it was number 9, Naeem Hack, who's gone around at Rocket. Whether he did that on his own or was helped, not quite sure. Anyway, he gets back into the race, and the Cup 200 battle for the lead continues.
Jonathan McGill's transponder isn't working. We don't really need the transponder to tell us he's in the pit lane, though. He's not in the race anymore, so that's probably a little academic, although race control insistent upon telling us. Richard Webb then lead. Fastest lap now, though, belongs to Ryan Yarrow, 1 minute 12.4. That was 2 tenths quicker than the leader, 4 tenths quicker, though, than Scott Mattel just ahead of him. So that gap between second and third place creeping down ever so slightly. They're just making their way through Church as the Cup 200 leaders descend upon the banking, with John Cutmore still well within slipstreaming range of Al Bolton. But Hayward not that far behind in third. Then it's Alexandra Aloro in fourth, although he's 1.3 seconds behind the leading 3. Back in Sports 1000 land, though, and the gaggle of cars fighting over 5th position. Dan Clues, number 2, Paul Rogers, number 43, 44, Carl Austin, and 28, Charlie Sladden, all in a line, making their way towards Peel.
And there is this battle then. It's Carl Austin and Charlie Sladden there. Carl Austin in the black and red Spire, the man from Devon. Charlie in his second season of racing in Sports 1000. Works in IT in the NHS. Colin Chapman not too far behind, only in 9th position. Colin Leach has been a bit further up the order this season. Ryan Yarrow's just in the best lap of the race, a 1:11.876, 11 seconds faster than they were doing this morning in the wet, of course, but it's narrowed the gap there to Scott Mittal, so he is taking the fight to the 2 leaders, Richard Webb and Scott Mittal. Mittal the winner of this morning's race. Ryan Yarrow winning yesterday's race by a second and a quarter over Richard Webb, and Yarrow did the best lap yesterday, 1:11.360, so he's about half a second outside of that time at the moment.
I think Charlie Sladden got past Carl Austin then with a nice move up the inside into the banking. Scott Mittal now looking to make a similarly nice move against Richard Webb for the race lead. They are absolutely together now as they turn through Rocket. Behind Clint Newman, that looked like was battling with somebody.
Was that Ryan Yarrow?
Yeah, I think it must have been. Did Ryan outbrake himself maybe?
Let's have a look. Do we see them through? Yeah, Ryan Yarrow has lost out, so he's shouldn't you say outbraked himself at Rocket, which has allowed Clint Newman to go into the podium positions, and that's significant, of course, with Yarrow being the championship leader.
Indeed so, and of course drops him further away from the top 2 now. He was looking like being a bit of a threat, wasn't he, as we headed into the middle part of the race, but perhaps not so much now. That has also delayed Newman and Yarrow to the point that they've now been caught by Clues and Rogers and Sladden and Austin. So it's 6 cars in a line now, from 3rd place all the way back to 8th.
Yeah, Yarrow led by 42 points coming into this race. Carl Austin it was that was up into 2nd, Paul Rogers 3rd, Colin Chapman 4th, Charlie Sladden 5th in the championship. Only 11 points covering 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th, so it's all to play for the minor placings. Ryan Yarrow is certainly the man to beat in the championship this season, looking for his 3rd championship title. But he's got his work cut out a little bit because Dan Clues is going to get past him now, so I wonder if there's a problem with his car. Rather than it being an issue, Rocket on the first lap, he might lose another position here to Paul Rogers up at the top of the hill. No, Rogers just took him back in behind. But Yarrow, all not well, I suggest there. And indeed, he has not lost out to Rogers just yet, but that was Clues confirming his position. Sladden in 28, trying to get ahead of Rogers as well, and then the man who's 2nd in the championship, Carl Austin, he's only 8th. Yeah, so I was surprised to hear Carl Austin was 2nd in the championship, only because he's been a little bit anonymous this weekend, sort of battling towards the back end of the top half dozen at best. But anyway, he has the potential maybe to pick up a few more places in this race. Meanwhile, in the Cup 200 class, Alistair Bolton still just ahead of John Cutmore as they wind their way out of Peel Corner. These two have been closely matched all weekend long, and now in these perfectly dry conditions, they've got a really good opportunity to put on a good show once again for the class victory. They descend upon the final corner, accelerate, sliding their way out of the final turn, or sliding in the case of Alistair Bolton anyway, a slightly more measured run for John Cutmore, and that seemed to be the quicker because Cutmore closed in again slightly on that lap. Certainly did. Less than, well, just over half a second between them. As we've now got Yarrow, he's got his hand on the air, he's waving cars past him, so that's Colin Chapman that's gone past him as well as Carl Austin, so wouldn't be surprised if we saw, will we see Ryan Yarrow pit bound, or will he just try and drive around whatever problem he's got just to pick up points here that could be important in the championship, or potentially if he thinks this is something that could be more serious, he might decide that the right thing to do is to head for the pit lane and avoid risking any further damage to the car or the engine.
Well, they'll have dropped scores presumably in this championship. I don't know if it's 2 or 3-2 we think, but again I'm not entirely sure what his previous results have been. He won't want to have too many non-finishes against his name, that's for sure. But of course what he really doesn't want to do is risk damaging the engine even more if it is an engine issue. He's come across the line once again. It makes me suspect something like gearbox issue, doesn't it? Because the car seems to be up to speed and then dramatically slows and then picks up again, which does sort of suggest he's either stuck in gear or can't get it to go through the gears as swiftly as it should be.
Yarrow's first result off the podium was the one this morning when he finished in 4th place. All the other races have been on the podium, so as you say, he has got this healthy lead in the championship, so maybe this is just going to be a bit of a blip for his season. But anyway, we're watching now Paul Rogers and Charlie Sladden. This is the fight for 5th position. It's Spire against Mittal. Two beautifully turned out and sleek cars. Paul Rogers, former champion, of course. 13 years ago now, he was the title winner in a Contour. There's the number 12 car that's just being lapped. That's a newcomer to the championship. That's Chris Barker, the 64-year-old from Watnell. In his first season of racing in a car that he started building himself many years ago, but it was ultimately completed by Spire and Tim Gray Motorsport to finish the build of that car, and he has now got it out and he's enjoying his racing.
He's indeed. He's about... Oh dear, this is for the lead in the Cup 200s. We'll get back to that in a moment then. Here comes Alistair Bolton under threat from John Cutmore, who was alongside him into the corkscrew. Cutmore in the blue and green number 98 car slips through on the inside line and gets the lead away. So John Cutmore then ahead of Alistair Bolton. Didn't see how that all started, whether it was a mistake from Bolton or Cutmore making the move. But either way, it is John Cutmore who moves to the lead of the class.
Side by side for the lead of the race now as well, because number 5, Scott Mittell, is alongside 8, Richard Webb, as they go up towards Rocket Corner, and Scott Mittell has gone through. And there was the contact there late on the brakes. Is Richard Webb. Andy McEwen has got his arms aloft in surprise and shock, but it is Webb still, for the moment, holding on to the lead of the race from Scott Mittell. Clint Newman 2.5 seconds behind, but yeah, that was a very close moment up there at Rocket, Andy.
I don't know how he got it stopped. He was so late on the brakes and sideways as well in the braking zone, which isn't normally conducive to slowing the car down, but somehow Richard Webb, I seem to recall seeing some good out-braking manoeuvres from earlier on today, actually. Managed to pull another one off to, in a way, defend, but in other ways, retake the race lead that he had effectively lost. Here's a replay. Look at this. He fully loses the position, then jinks to the inside. The back of the car steps out. It's bumpy. He's on the dirty side of the road, snatches a brake, and somehow almost makes the apex.
I think Mittell cooperated with that. He thought, hang on, I'm just going to stay out of this. You do you, and I'll just tuck in behind rather than avoid potentially getting involved in an accident. Scott runs the team, Mittell team, with his dad, Ian, and probably the last thing they would have wanted is any damage to one of their cars to have to deal with. But anyway, Mittell lives to fight for this position once again. There's still 3.5 minutes to go in this race, and it's pretty tight because Clint Newman now has got to within 1.4 seconds of the race. He was no doubt aided by their moment up at Rocket a couple of laps ago. They've pulled away from Dan Clues, who's 4th, Paul Rogers, who's 5th, and Charlie Slatton, who's 6th. But it's interesting to see that we've got the top 8 covered by only 7 seconds, and we're 12 minutes into this race.
It's been a fantastic race, hasn't it? We've made the point a few times already this weekend about how competitive this grid is this year, and they're really displaying now what that means. It means great close racing. It means lots of drivers in contention for good results, and not just in Sports 1000, but also within Cup 200, because this is still nose to tail, the battle between John Cutmore and Alistair Bolton for the battle for the class lead. Still Cutmore ahead of Bolton, but Alistair Bolton not being dropped at all here by the number 98 car. He slides his way through Peel Corner. Bolton's car definitely looks a bit more leery, doesn't it, than John Cutmore's, but they're both going quickly and both clearly evenly matched.
Yeah, certainly are. Mike Whiteman-Hayward just in behind them as well, so it's really 3 cars quite close together. They're just passing the number 12 car of Chris Barker and lapping his car as they continue their battle with just a couple of minutes of the race left to go. The overall leader is still Richard Webb. Ryan Yarrow, by the way, is still circulating. His lap times are in the 16, so probably 4 or 5 seconds off what he's capable of, but he is at least continuing around to pick up points in the championship, which is something that is certainly worth doing if you can. Battle among the Cup 200 cars continues here then. Cutmore and Bolton in that order, 11th and 12th overall, and not a lot to choose between them. We can see the leaders beneath our comms box just coming over the line once again. 0.6 of a second first to second. Clint Newman about a second behind them. Al Bolton making a renewed attempt at getting the Cup 200 lead.
Yes, he is, but still can't find a way by as they head through Rocket. Thought he might have had an overlap then heading towards Peel. He is looking up the inside line, very late on the brakes, but John Cutmore, cool, calm and collected, didn't panic, just turned into the apex like normal and sort of forced Alistair Bolton to make his own arrangements, really, so they stay as they were. Up front, by the way, some side-by-side battling for 4th, and in fact a change for 4th position. Paul Rogers has just gone round the outside of Dan Clues at Church Corner. There they are on screen, so Paul Rogers ahead of Dan Clues now, who is just sort of slipping back in this race a little bit. He tries to get back up the inside, in fact does get back up the inside into Rocket, and almost makes a little bit of contact with Paul Rogers, perhaps just avoided it, but Dan Clues taking a page out of the Richard Webb book there of overtaking, almost, but not quite late enough on the brakes.
No, so great scrap for 4th, and they are, what, 4 seconds or so behind the leaders who are just dropping down through the corkscrew once again. They are going to be about to start their final lap. They've got one of the Cup 200 cars ahead of them. It's the number 4 car, which I think is that of John Murphy. But yeah, leaders now go on to their final lap, and Richard Webber's just done the best lap of the race, a 1:11.774. It's pulled out an extra couple of tenths. Meanwhile, for 5th position, we're about to get a place change as well, going into turn 1. And for Cup 200, Andy, the battle still continues.
Yes, because Alistair Bolton outbraked himself then, trying to go around the outside of John Cutmore at Rocket, and in doing so nearly opened the door for Hayward to come through as well. It is one of those races where you don't really know which end of the field to be looking at. There's battles at the front, battles in the back, and quite a few good ones in the middle as well. This is the overall leading group, though. It was heading up the hill. This is actually the fight for 5th position now. Dan Clue slipping back into the clutches of Charlie Sladden, who's just been picking his way through the field quite nicely in this race so far. They head up towards Rocket Corner. Dan Clue defends the position for now.
Yeah, the leaders, though, are at Peel for the final time. Here is Richard Webb, number 8. Oh, and Carl Austin is off on the grass, and he makes contact with Colin Chapman there. I think they both survived that. A little accident there as the man who's second in the championship regained the circuit into Peel Corner. They go, but the leaders now are out of the corkscrew for the final time. Up to the line they come. Checkered flag is about to be taken, and it's going to be number 8, Richard Webb, that takes the checkered flag to win the latest round of the Nankang Sports 1000 Championship. It's round 7 of the championship, the halfway mark of the season. 9 tenths ahead of Scott Mittell. Clint Newman, an excellent result for him for 3rd. Paul Rogers getting the fastest lap of the race on the final lap, a 1:11.696 in 4th. And Dan Clue's 5th, Charlie Sladden 6th, Carl Austin and Colin Chapman 7th and 8th. And there is our Cup 200 leader.
Yeah, John Cutmore, I think, has this one more or less in the bag now. That little mistake from Alistair Bolton a lap and a bit ago at Rocket has cost him, and it means that he's just not really been able to take the fight to Cutmore in the closing stages. It was a lovely move that Cutmore made halfway through the race, and from there he hasn't really looked back. Heads down through the final corner and awaits the checkered flag.
Yeah, and he takes it now to win the Cup 200 division. 11th place overall for him, 12th to Alistair Bolton, 13th to Mike Wyman Haywood. Those 3 cars separated only by 1.8 seconds at the end of the race, and the rest of the field just coming through. Naeem Hack has got a place away from Alex Aloro on the final lap. Charlie Wright 16th and John Murphy a lap down in 17th. Chris Barker, the last driver to bring his car home at the end of the Nankang Sports 1000 Championship race. That championship will continue at Snetterton with another triple header at the beginning of August. Then they go to Alton and Donington Park, the Grand Prix circuit there, to round out the Sports 1000 season. But yeah, very exciting and hectic race, very fast race. That'll be some of the quickest racing, certainly the quickest racing that we see today here at Anglesey. Let's have a look at the way the results line up then. Number 8, Richard Webb, it was that took the win after 13 laps in his Spire GT3. He was 0.929 seconds clear of number 5, Scott Mittell, in the Mittell MC53 in 2nd place. 3rd to number 42, Clint Newman. 4th was number 43, Paul Rogers. In 5th place, number 2, Dan Clues. 6th was number 28, Charlie Sladden. Carl Austin, number 44, was in 7th place. Colin Chapman was 8th in 63. And Hutchinson was 9th. And the championship leader, Ryan Yarrow, was in 10th place, number 54, with those problems that he had earlier on in the race. In the Cup 200 cars, 11th overall, number 98, John Cutmore. He was that winner of that class. 12th to number 777, Alistair Bolton, 77 Alistair Bolton, and 111 Mike Whiteman Hayward in 13th place, completed the Cup 200 podium with Naeem Hack in 14th place, Alex Lowe 15th, and Charles Wright, the last driver, on the leading lap. And as we say, the Sports 1000 cars continue their season at Snetterton next month. But we have 2 more races to go. Before that, we're going to head down to Parc Fermé and Kieran Mogg.
This series always throws up some interesting racing, and that was not an exception. We're going to talk to our winner here, Richard Webb. They're just talking with Scott Mittell, probably about that astonishing move going up towards the hill. If I could just jump in here, Richard, that was absolutely incredible there to be able to hold that off. That was an amazing race.
Yeah, that wasn't easy at all. I mean, having Scott in my mirrors the whole time was just, I mean, we've worked hard this weekend. It's still not perfect. We're down massively on top speed, but to finally get the result, I can't thank the team enough. They've all worked so hard. Tim Gray, all his boys, and the guys at Spire, it's been brilliant. So to get the result at the end of the weekend is brilliant.
Fantastic way to end the weekend, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Sunshine, Anglesey, and a race win. Perfect.
Exactly. Well, congratulations.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We'll quickly speak to Scott. Scott, that was one hell of a battle out there.
Yeah, it was good fun. It's me and Rich have never actually raced together before. We know each other quite well. We do lots together, but never actually raced each other. So today's been good fun. I got one, he got one, so it feels probably fair.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations on second place.
Cheers, thank you very much.
Cheers, thank you. Now I have a quick word with John Cutmore. Where's he? Not again. They keep running away from me. I'm fed up of drivers running away from me. I clearly have a curse, and they don't like speaking to me. But never mind. We've got John here. John, you had to absolutely fight for that one.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, wasn't it? It was a good race. Good race. Well done, Al.
Yeah, how did you find the conditions out there as well in the competition?
Well, obviously down on numbers, aren't we? But I mean, the weather's changed. It's a different race altogether from this morning, isn't it? So yeah, good race out by all, I'd say.
Absolutely. Well, great way to end the weekend as well.
Yeah, not bad, eh?
Fantastic. Congratulations on the win.
Yeah, thank you.
Cheers. Thank you very much. Now we've got racing coming up next. Got 2 more races, I believe. So don't go anywhere.